Good morning. Welcome to another video on the Luterco Arms channel. So today I want to talk about something that actually happens quite a bit for me, and that is single shot break action shotguns. So the situation I get a lot is that people will inherit their daddies or their granddaddies, sometimes it's been hand down 3 or 4 generations, old single shot break action shotgun. I'll throw up a couple of pictures, show you what exactly I'm talking about. And they'll bring it to me and want to get it fixed up. A lot of times they're in pretty poor shape because these shotguns were generally sold at hardware stores in the 20s and 30s for very little money. They were, just like they are today, pretty much the most inexpensive firearm you could buy. And what'll happen is people would buy them and they were basically not treated like a gun collection so much, but as a tool. It was a tool. People used them to put food on the table, protect their property. A lot of times, you know, they might have been hung over the back door or in the corner by the door. And, you know, most people back in those days didn't have heating and air conditioning, so they didn't have climate control. The guns would get rust on them, the wood would get worn, and nobody really paid that much attention to it because it was just an inexpensive tool. And over the years, you know, they would hand them down. When people would die, you know, they'd get left. So anyways, we come to the modern day, and a lot of times people don't realize that just because something's old doesn't mean it's high value. You can go to any auction or any pawn shop or any place that sells used guns and pick up break action shotguns. I've bought them at auctions for as little as $25, $50 to $100. You know, now we're not talking about there were all different manufacturers. All of your major brands, Mossberg, Winchester, Remington, they all produced single shot break action shotguns. And some of those would be worth more than, you know, $100. But for the most part, most of them were made by Iver Johnson, Harrington and Richardson, Stevens, and they're generally worth $50 to $100 in really good shape. And the problem that happens is people will bring them to me, and it's my granddaddy's gun, I want to fix it up so I can sell it. And you'll spend more money getting the wood redone and the bluing redone. You know, that generally is labor intensive. You will spend 2 to 3 times as much getting the gun restored as you'll ever make trying to sell it. Now, with that being said, you know, if you want to restore the gun because it was your granddaddy's and you want to hang it on the wall, then by all means. That's awesome, and I've done plenty of them. But, you know, if you think you're just going to fix it up to sell it, well, you're really not going to you're going to lose money, basically. The other thing you got to watch out for is some of these guns were made back when black powder shells existed and smokeless powder didn't. And so if you stick a high brass modern smokeless round in an old shotgun that was made for a black powder cartridge, you could run into trouble. You can very quickly overpower the gun. You know, a lot of them back then, the metallurgy was not what it is today, so you got to be careful with that. But for the most part, your ones from the the 30s onwards are fine. They'll last forever if you take a little bit of care of them. You know, there's nothing exotic or sexy about a single shot break action shotgun. And the other thing too is, if it's a double, side by side or over and under, they're generally worth a little bit of money. But the single shot, not so much. You know, if it was my granddaddy's gun, yeah, I would invest in fixing it up to keep it for an heirloom. But just keep in mind that it's not going to be worth a lot of money. But there is something you can do with them. So let me get over to the bench and I'll show you what you can do with an old break action shotgun, including the older black powder ones that you can't necessarily shoot with modern shotgun shells. You can still make a usable and entertaining firearm out of them. So let me go get set up for that and I will show you what you can do. Okay, so we're over at the bench now, and what I've got here, this is actually my personal gun, and it's been refinished and the wood's been smoothed out and refinished. But you can see it's got a red dot mounted on it, and the barrel is short. This barrel is 16 inches. Now, one thing you got to realize, if you're going to do this, I'll explain it in a minute, why this barrel is 16 inches. And you may not be able to cut yours down to 16 inches. You may have to go with 18 inches, but we'll get to that part in a minute. So what we have here, this is an Iver Johnson Champion, and you can tell it's an old one because, and I don't know if this will show up in the camera, but it says Iver Johnson's Arms and Cycle Works, because Iver Johnson made bicycles as well as shotguns. So anyways, what I have done here, in addition to refinishing all the metal and wood and mounting a mount with a Millet red dot on it, is, let me get this set here and get the, so if we open the action, I gotta kind of tap it, hold on. Alright, so we'll open the action, and you can see that that is not 12 gauge. This is chambered for 9mm. And you can see it's marked right here on the barrel, 9mm. And so what you can do, this is basically, I converted this shotgun into a single shot 9mm plinking rifle. So here's a round of 9mm. You can see that chamber's in there just fine. And then you can fire it, and once you fire it, you can just use your fingernail and pop your empty shell casing out. Now, what you got to keep in mind if you decide to do this is that the way I did it, let me close this action and set this out of the way. So how I did this is, you can buy, I have one right here, this is a insert for a 12 gauge, and you can see that it's got the basic 12 gauge shell shape here with the rim. Now this one happens to be a 38 special. You can see that 38 special there, and this will basically fit down in the barrel of the shotgun. And this is rifled, it's a rifled barrel, and that will convert it over, in this case 38 special. In the case of this, it is 9mm. What you got to keep in mind if you do this conversion though is if you want to cut the barrel to 16 inches, you have to permanently mount this in the shotgun barrel. So underneath the forearm, this is on this gun, it is actually pinned and welded in there, so you cannot take it back out. If you want to make it so that you can stick this in, because these are actually made where you can put them in there, and you see they have the little O-rings here to kind of hold them in correctly. And if you just want to make it where you can put it in there and shoot 9mm or 38 special, they sell them in all different calibers, and I got these off of eBay. I don't know if you can still get them off of eBay, because I did this several years ago, but they're around anyways. And if you're going to make it where you can switch back and forth between 12 gauge and the pistol caliber barrel, then you're going to have, you can only cut it down to 18 inches because you still have a shotgun, and 18 inches is the minimum barrel length for a shotgun without getting into a short barreled shotgun. So this one that I built is 16 inches, but it's no longer a shotgun because the insert has been pinned and welded in, so you cannot remove it and make this a shotgun again. But yep, that's something you can do. It's a fun little plinker, 9mm, and still not worth a, still not really worth, a bunch of money or anything, but it does make it where it is much more enjoyable, at least for me. I even cut a couple of ports in the top of the barrel when I built it. But yeah, so that's something you can do if you've got an old single shot break action shotgun and you don't know what to do with it, and you don't really want to shoot 12 gauge. Well, you can make a pistol caliber single shot rifle out of it. But yeah, I just figured I'd make a little video on that, because I do get an awful lot of people bringing me their granddaddy's break action shotguns and thinking they've got something, and unfortunately for the most part they're just not worth a lot of money. Even in excellent condition, it's $150 if it's a good brand. Now there are exceptions there. If you've got one that's Purdy or something, of course those are going to be worth a lot more. But for the most part, they sold these by the millions in hardware stores. I mean, they literally had barrels of them. So they're just not worth a lot of money. But they can be a lot of fun, because this little single shot is a hell of a lot of fun. 9mm out of a long barrel like that. It's not very loud. It's not gonna disturb your neighbors unless you live in a really, I live in the South. Everybody shoots here, so that's not really a problem for us. But yeah. So hopefully this gave y'all an idea of something you can do or helped you out. And we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a good one. Appreciate y'all watching. And hey, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. All that helps the channel out. So appreciate y'all watching, and y'all have a good one.